They say raising children is the most rewarding journey in life. But what if that journey leads you straight into darkness? These 3 chilling true stories reveal the terrifying mysteries lurking behind seemingly ordinary families. From a child's strange sleepover that ended in whispers, to a mother whose terrifying behavior defied logic, and a hidden mirror that may have drawn children in their sleep. These tales will make you question what really hides behind closed doors. My son's new friend. I've always considered my son, Nathan, to be unusually kind-hearted. He's the type of kid who can make friends with anyone. Class clowns, shy loners, even the kids other parents might describe as strange. I admired that about him. At least I used to. It started when we moved to a small town in Oregon. Rural, quiet, tucked along the edge of a thick pine forest. I'd taken a new job at a medical center, and Nathan started 5th grade at a local public school. Things seemed fine at first. Nathan adjusted quickly, and I was relieved to hear he had already made a new friend, Max. He talked about Max constantly, how they shared snacks, played imaginary games on the playground, and loved the same weird video game I couldn't pronounce. But there were things that felt off. Nathan said Max hated bright lights and preferred to whisper rather than talk. He claimed Max had a secret hiding spot in his attic, where he kept dangerous thoughts. I chalked it up to childhood imagination, until the call came. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had just finished charting patient notes when my phone buzzed. It was the school principal's office. There had been an incident involving Nathan and another student. My stomach dropped. When I arrived, I found Nathan sitting quietly outside the main office. He didn't look angry or scared, just blank. That worried me more than anything. Inside, the principal, Mrs. Collins, explained that Nathan had struck Max on the side of the head with a metal pencil box during recess. Max had screamed, fallen down, and claimed Nathan attacked him for no reason. According to Mrs. Collins, neither the teacher nor any other student saw the actual moment, but the aftermath was loud and clear. I was stunned. Nathan had never shown any sign of aggression, not at home, not in past schools. When I asked Nathan why he'd done it, he looked at me and said, "Max made me do it. He told me to." That night I sat him down on the couch and gently asked for the full story. What he told me left me speechless. Apparently, Max had convinced Nathan to play a game, a final boss battle, like in a video game. Nathan was supposed to use the pencil box as a special move. When he did, Max exaggerated his fall and screamed like he'd been seriously hurt. Then, Max leaned in close and whispered, "If you don't pretend you meant to hit me, I'll make sure you get really hurt." Nathan had gone silent after that, scared and confused. It sounded like some twisted manipulation, but coming from a 10-year-old. I decided to call Max's parents, or at least whoever listed themselves on the school emergency contact. A woman named Marla answered. She sounded sweet, warm even. I told her what Nathan had said, and to my surprise, she didn't deny anything. She laughed nervously and said, "Max can be a little dramatic. He lives in his own world sometimes." She explained Max had always had some behavioral quirks, but had improved a lot recently. Then, almost casually, she offered to host a sleepover so the boys could move past the incident. It sounded too soon to me, but Marla had a way of making it feel harmless. That Saturday, I dropped Nathan off at their home, a narrow 2-story house off a wooded road. The house looked weathered, but not uninviting. Marla greeted us at the door with a tray of cookies and a big smile. The boys ran upstairs while she and I sat in the living room and talked. She poured me tea and spoke about books and parenting. For a moment, she seemed like any other small-town mom. But when I brought up Max's behavior, her tone shifted. She spoke softer, choosing her words carefully. "He's complex," she said, "but he's getting better at keeping things inside." That line stayed with me. Keeping things inside. I left around 9:30 p.m., kissed Nathan goodnight, and told him to call if he needed anything. I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I returned at 8 a.m. Nathan was already outside, standing near the front steps with his overnight bag slung over his shoulder. When he got in the car, I asked him how it went. He didn't answer. We were halfway down the road when he suddenly burst into tears. I pulled over, turned in my seat, and asked what happened. And then, with shaking hands, he told me. Sometime after midnight, Nathan woke up. He said something felt off. The attic door had been left cracked open, and there was a flickering orange glow coming from inside. Not like a lamp, more like candlelight. Inside, Max was standing in front of a tall mirror, whispering. But he wasn't calling himself Max. He called himself Lucas. And he wasn't whispering to anyone in particular, just the mirror. Nathan said it was like Max believed the mirror was speaking back. Then, the candlelight vanished. The attic went pitch dark. A few minutes later, Nathan heard footsteps creaking down the stairs. He shut his eyes, pretending to sleep. Then, something crouched above him. He could hear Max whispering again. But this time, the words weren't in English. They didn't even sound human. Eventually, the whispering stopped, and Max climbed back into his sleeping bag. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. I was frozen. I didn't know what to think. I called the number I had for Marla, but it had been disconnected. I drove back to the house that afternoon. It was empty. No cars, no moving truck, no mailbox. It was like no one had lived there at all. I contacted the school. They claimed there was no student currently enrolled under the name Max, and no record of any parent named Marla in their files. Nathan's older now. He barely remembers it. But I do. I remember the look on his face, the whispering, the candlelight in the attic. The name, Lucas, still makes my skin crawl. To this day, I don't know who that kid really was, or what he believed he was becoming in front of that mirror. All I know is this: not all monsters live in the closet. Some whisper through the cracks of childhood, and smile through the face of a friend. My mother brought something home. They say trauma fades with time. I used to believe that. Now I know. It just waits. I grew up in a small town in Mississippi, the kind with one traffic light and 3 churches on the same block. My father passed when I was 8, and from then on, it was just me and my mom. She was complicated. I don't say that with bitterness. She had her good moments. She could be funny, thoughtful even. But there was always something off about her, like there were 2 versions of her hiding beneath the surface, and I never knew which one I'd come home to. We weren't poor, but close to it. We lived in an aging 1-story house with creaky floorboards and a front porch that leaned slightly to the left. I slept in the back bedroom, furthest from the road. It was quiet out there, almost too quiet. My mother didn't go to church, not because she was an atheist. She said she believed in something. She just didn't care to define it. When I asked her why we never prayed or read the Bible like the other families, she'd smile and say, "God and I have our own arrangement." I was too young to understand how unnerving that answer really was. Her behavior started changing when I was around 11. It began subtly. She'd laugh at things that weren't funny, stare too long at the walls, wake up in the middle of the night, and wander the house muttering things under her breath. I chalked it up to grief. Maybe she never got over my dad. Maybe she was depressed. Then one night, I had the worst nightmare of my life. In the dream, I was lying in bed when the door slammed open. My mother stood in the doorway, her face twisted in rage. She charged at me, grabbed my wrist, and started shaking me violently, yelling words I couldn't understand. Her eyes were wild, glassy and vacant, yet somehow furious. I woke up drenched in sweat. My heart was pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. Then the door creaked open, and there she was, my mom, standing in the same place, with the same look and the same words coming out of her mouth. She rushed to my bed, grabbed my wrist, and began shaking me just like in the dream. I screamed and shoved her back. She paused, blinked, then slowly left the room without saying a word. The next morning, she didn't remember any of it, or claimed not to. She looked confused, even hurt, when I brought it up, like I had done something wrong by mentioning it. That was the first time I truly felt afraid of her. A few weeks later, I heard her screaming in the backyard. It was around 3 a.m. I jumped out of bed and ran to the kitchen window to look out. What I saw still haunts me. She was standing barefoot in the middle of the yard, smiling, holding a snake at least 6 feet long in her bare hands. The worst part, my mother was deathly afraid of snakes. I'd seen her cry over a picture of one in a science textbook, but that night she looked thrilled, like she had found a long-lost friend. She held it up toward the sky like an offering and called for me to come outside. "Come meet him," she whispered. "He's been waiting for you." I didn't move. I just stood frozen until she eventually released the snake and wandered back inside. Again, in the morning, she claimed to remember none of it. And again, I told myself maybe she was sick. Maybe it was sleepwalking, or stress, or something psychological. I wanted so badly to believe that. But things escalated. One night that winter, my church held a youth lock-in, an overnight event with games, movies, and Bible study. I was excited to go. Church was my escape, structured, normal, filled with people who smiled without malice in their eyes. My mom dropped me off and seemed totally lucid. She kissed my forehead and said she loved me. Around 4:30 a.m., we were winding down for sleep when a strange noise broke through the silence. Knocking. It started at the chapel doors and moved along the outer walls. Knock, 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 in steady rhythm, circling the building. Then it grew faster, louder, like something was moving around the building, testing it. Kids started waking up, murmuring in confusion. It wasn't wind, it wasn't branches, it was deliberate. I ran to the pastor's office and woke him. When he opened the chapel doors, my mother was standing there, barefoot, in the cold, drenched in sweat. She didn't speak. Her lips moved silently, as if in prayer or chant. Then she looked up and locked eyes with me. That smile, the same one from the backyard, slow, predatory, stretched across her face. The pastor instinctively stepped in front of me, whispering, "Don't go near her." But I couldn't move. I felt pulled. She said nothing, just stared. Then she turned around, walked to the car, and waited. Despite everyone telling me not to, I got in the car. I had no choice. I felt it. The drive home was dead silent. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Her eyes never blinked. When we got home, she stopped at the doorway and watched me as I walked to my room. She didn't come inside. She didn't say goodnight. I locked the door and lay awake until sunrise. The next morning, she was cheerful, chipper even. Asked if I'd had fun at the church lock-in. I asked if she remembered picking me up. She laughed. Of course not. I just woke up. I was about to go get you. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't lying. She really didn't remember. I never told anyone at church what happened, and no one asked. Years later, after she passed, I found her old journals buried in the back of a closet. Most were unintelligible. Scribbles, drawings, ramblings about dreams, doors, and the ones who live between the layers of night. One passage stood out. Sometimes they use me. I see it happen, and I can't stop it. The door is open too wide. I still don't know what that means. I just know. Sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still hear knocking, and I'm afraid the door might still be open. The mirror behind the wall. When my first son, Tyler, started sleepwalking at age 9, I didn't think much of it. I'd read that kids sometimes did that. It usually passed after a few months. Still, it was a little unnerving. It started with footsteps. Almost every night, I'd wake up around 2 or 3 a.m. to hear faint padding outside our bedroom door. At first, I thought it was the dog, but when I peeked out into the hallway, I'd find Tyler standing there, motionless, eyes wide open, but clearly not awake. He'd shift from one foot to the other, sway slightly, and occasionally murmur something too garbled to make out. It gave me chills every time. His eyes were the worst part. Open, glassy, like he was looking straight through me. I gently guide him back to bed, whispering reassurances until he lay down again. He never remembered any of it in the morning. After a few months, it stopped. I thought it was over. Then, when our second son, Owen, turned 9, it started again. At first, it was identical. Quiet steps in the hallway, standing outside our room, unseeing eyes. But something about it felt worse this time. Maybe because I'd already lived through it once. Maybe because deep down, I'd always had the feeling that what Tyler did back then wasn't just sleepwalking. It got worse one cold November night. I woke up to a soft thud, thud, thud. At first, I thought it was the water heater or maybe branches brushing against the siding. But the sound was too precise, rhythmic, measured, like someone lightly knocking on a surface again and again. I got out of bed and followed the sound into the hallway. Owen was there, facing the wall, his forehead gently tapping it in a slow, deliberate rhythm. His fingertips brushed the wallpaper like he was trying to feel for something or get through it. The same wall, the same exact spot where Tyler used to stand all those years ago. I said his name. Nothing. I touched his shoulder. He didn't flinch. It was like he wasn't there, like whatever part of him that made him Owen had gone somewhere else. I finally gave him a firm shake, and he blinked slowly, looked up at me, and let me walk him back to bed without a word. I didn't tell my husband. He thought I was being paranoid. I tried to believe that myself. But the more I watched it repeat, the forehead tapping, the subtle swaying, the muttered phrases that weren't even words, the harder it became to dismiss. I started checking the wall during the day, running my fingers across the wallpaper, pressing against it like Owen had. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe I hoped I'd find a loose board, a draft, something that could explain it. But I didn't. And eventually, just like Tyler, Owen stopped. The sleepwalking faded. He grew up, left for college, and the house became quiet. Too quiet. A few months ago, with both boys out of the house, my husband and I decided to do some long overdue renovations. New flooring, new paint, fresh start. We hired a contractor to help with the bigger jobs. One Saturday morning, while removing the decades-old wallpaper in the hallway, I heard the contractor say, "You're gonna want to see this." I walked over. Beneath the last layer of wallpaper, right behind where both boys had tapped their foreheads, was a mirror. A tall, narrow, antique-style mirror bolted into the drywall. It had been covered, sealed beneath layers of paper and paint. But it wasn't broken or cracked. It was clean, too clean, as if someone had taken care of it, even while hiding it. I stared at it for a long time. My heart was pounding in a way I hadn't felt since that night Owen stood there, murmuring in his sleep. I asked the contractor to take it out. He tried, but the bolts wouldn't budge. They were rusted deep, almost fused into the wood beneath. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The reflection, faint and old, warped from decades of being buried. I started to wonder if my son's sleepwalking wasn't random. What if they were drawn to it? What if they knew it was there, without knowing? I stayed up late, researching. I found stories. Folklore, mostly. About mirrors being portals. About spirits using reflective surfaces to enter homes. I didn't believe in any of it. At least, I didn't want to. The next day, I grabbed a crowbar and a hammer while my husband was at work. It took me nearly 2 hours, but I managed to pry the mirror off the wall. Behind it was nothing, just wood and drywall. But the surface of the mirror, now fully exposed, had changed. There were tiny fingerprints all over the inside of the glass. From the inside, dozens of them, smudged and dragged downward, like something had been trying to get out. I smashed it. I didn't hesitate. I brought it out to the fire pit in the backyard and burned the frame until nothing but charred metal and broken glass remained. When my husband got home, he didn't even ask why. Maybe he saw the look on my face. Maybe he felt it too. Since then, the house has been quiet. Normal. But I can't help but wonder. If we hadn't started renovations, how long would that mirror have stayed hidden? And what would have happened the next time someone stood in front of it? Both my sons insist they don't remember their sleepwalking years. I haven't told them what we found, but sometimes, when they visit, they pause at that same spot in the hallway. They don't say anything. They just glance at it, as if something's still there, waiting.